I had just walked out of the courthouse, a copy of the divorce agreement in my hand. The sunlight was blinding. I stood on the steps, folded the papers neatly, and slipped them into my bag. My phone rang. It was Attorney Thompson, the executor my grandfather had appointed before he passed. Ms. Sophie, he said in his usual formal tone, the inheritance procedures have been fully completed. After taxes, the remaining $320 million has been transferred to your designated account. Please check at your convenience. I tightened my grip on the phone. Before I could respond, I heard Mark's voice behind me. Sophie, stop pretending. He adjusted the cuff of his suit jacket, that familiar look of contempt on his face, the one I'd lived with for 10 years. How much could your grandpa's little retirement fund possibly be, now that we're divorced? No one's going to support you and Amy. You'd better start watching your spending. His eyes flicked over the dress I was wearing. I'd had it for 3 years. The neckline had started to fade. If you weren't so obedient back then, I wouldn't have married you, he went on. Now that I'm with Jessica, I finally know what a real life looks like. Jessica, his secretary, the third person in our marriage. I ignored him and spoke into the phone. Attorney Thompson, please help me contact an immigration agency. I need to process immigration paperwork for my daughter and me as soon as possible. If we can leave today, even better. Of course, Ms. Sophie, he replied immediately. We work with a partner agency. The fastest option can secure temporary visas this afternoon. I'll book your flight now. A temporary residence in Los Angeles will also be arranged. Mark let out a laugh. Sophie, who are you trying to fool? Immigration? With what money? I opened my banking app. The freshly deposited $320 million glowed on the screen. I held the phone up in front of him. His eyes widened instantly. He reached out to touch the screen, but I pulled it back. Mark, we're divorced, I said, slipping the agreement into my bag. You and Jessica can live your lives. Don't worry about Amy and me. He froze for a few seconds. Then his arrogance returned. So what if you have a little money? You think you can survive overseas with a kid? Sophie, don't be impulsive. You should hold on to that money. Maybe someday you can even help Jessica and me out. Get lost. My voice was calm when I said it. My phone buzzed. Flight details from Attorney Thompson. 3 p.m. Non-stop to Los Angeles. The immigration agent's contact information followed. I opened a rideshare app and entered the airport address. Then I looked at Mark, still standing there. Oh, and by the way, the apartment you're living in? My parents gave it to me as part of my dowry. Please move out as soon as possible. My lawyer will contact you about the transfer. His expression changed. Sophie, don't push it. I've lived there 5 years. How could it possibly be yours? The deed is in my name. There's a prenuptial notarization on file. I opened the car door and lifted Amy into the back seat. If you refuse to cooperate, I'll see you in court. As the taxi pulled away, I saw Mark standing outside the courthouse in the rearview mirror, his face dark. A provocatively dressed woman ran up and looped her arm through his. Jessica. Amy pressed her face to the window. Mom, isn't Daddy coming with us? I squeezed her hand. Daddy has his own life. From now on, Mommy will take you somewhere new. We'll live a different kind of life. My phone rang again. The immigration agent said the temporary visas were ready and would be delivered to the airport VIP lounge. Our accommodation was a furnished apartment in downtown Los Angeles, ready for immediate move-in. After hanging up, I opened a shopping app and ordered a few outfits suitable for California's climate for Amy, along with daily necessities. I also booked airport VIP services. I switched my phone to silent mode, leaned back in the seat, and closed my eyes. I had been married to Mark for 10 years. In the early days of his startup, he relied on my parents' financial support. Once his company stabilized, he began complaining that I couldn't keep up with his pace. Women outside our marriage came one after another. I endured it, for Amy, until last month, when he showed up with Jessica and demanded a divorce. He said Amy could stay with me. He wanted the company and the assets. At the time, I truly had nothing. He had taken all our savings under the pretext of company cash flow. The only thing in my name was that premarital property. I thought my life would be miserable. I never imagined Grandpa would leave me such a massive inheritance. He ran an import-export business his whole life. Never married. and adored me since I was little. I truly had no idea he was this wealthy. When the taxi arrived at the airport, I carried Amy into the VIP lounge. Staff were already waiting at the entrance and took my documents to process our boarding passes. Amy sat on the sofa reading a picture book provided by the lounge. I called my best friend Megan and told her I was immigrating. "Sophie, are you sure about this?" Megan sounded worried. "You're just letting that bastard Mark get away with it? It's not about letting him off. He's not worth it." I watched planes take off and land outside the window. "I'm taking Amy and starting our own life. He'll pay his price eventually." An hour before boarding, I went to the restroom. When I came back, I saw Mark and Jessica at the lounge entrance, stopped by staff. Jessica was impeccably dressed, designer dress, flawless makeup. When she saw me, she lifted her chin in open provocation. "Sophie, I can't believe you actually scraped together enough money to immigrate. Didn't take out loan sharks' money, did you?" Mark walked in behind her, glanced at Amy, then quickly looked away. "Sophie, I know you're upset, but divorce was inevitable," he said. "Jessica and I are getting married tomorrow. The wedding's at the Hilton, much grander than ours ever was." He paused, his tone patronizing. "If you regret this now and leave the apartment to me, I might consider letting you remain Amy's guardian. You could even visit her occasionally." I smiled, pulled out the copy of the inheritance certificate Attorney Thompson had just sent, and flung it in his face. "Open your eyes. That's $320 million. Enough for Amy and me to live comfortably in the US. For several lifetimes. Your wedding, your apartment, I don't want any of it." The papers fluttered to the floor. Jessica bent to pick them up. When she saw the number, her eyes went wide. "Mark, does she really have that much money?" she whispered. Mark's face darkened. He opened his mouth to say something, but the boarding announcement sounded. I lifted Amy, grabbed our luggage, and headed for the gate. After takeoff, Amy fell asleep in my arms. A first-class flight attendant offered a hot towel and asked if I'd like anything to drink. I shook my head and looked out the window. I had lived in that city for 15 years, from school to marriage, from pregnancy to divorce. Now it grew smaller and smaller, until it disappeared beneath the clouds. Just before the cabin doors closed, hurried footsteps echoed down the aisle. Mark and Jessica squeezed in at the last second. Jessica's high heel caught slightly in the door. The hem of her dress was briefly pinched. She shoved Mark. "This is your fault. We almost missed it." He slipped an arm around her waist and deliberately scanned the first-class cabin before letting his gaze settle on me, an obvious display. "What a coincidence. Sophie, you're in first class too? Guess your grandpa's little inheritance made you generous for once." Jessica chimed in immediately. She pulled out her phone and opened a photo of her wedding gown. "Look, this is the custom dress I'll wear tomorrow. 3 months of hand embroidery. The reception is in the Hilton's largest ballroom, 300 guests. The wine's all Lafite. Much more impressive than your wedding back then, right?" She held the phone up close to my face. The gown sparkled on the screen, though it somehow made her expression look even sharper. I didn't look at it. I pressed the service button instead. When the flight attendant approached, I said calmly, "Could you please draw the divider curtain? My child is sleeping." Mark refused to back off. He stepped around the curtain and planted both hands on the armrests of my seat. "Stop pretending, Sophie," Mark said. "That apartment in your name before the divorce, it's just sitting there empty now. Why not transfer it to Jessica and me as our marital home? We were married once. After all, you can't just watch us struggle without even a decent place to live. Can you? Married once?" I finally looked up at him. I took the original inheritance certificate out of my bag, along with the notarized premarital property agreement. "Mark, did you forget? My parents paid for that apartment in full. The deed is in my name only. The prenuptial agreement clearly states it has absolutely nothing to do with you." I flipped to a specific page. "On the other hand, during our marriage, you took the $500,000 dowry my parents gave me, claiming it was for company cash flow. You also took my salary savings from the past few years, a total of $1.23 million. Please return it as soon as possible." Jessica immediately exploded. "Sophie, what nonsense are you talking about? That money was used for Mark's company. How can you call it borrowing from you? Are you just jealous and trying to extort us?" "Extort?" I turned to another page and pointed at the transaction records. "Here's every transfer receipt. And here's the IOU Mark wrote at the time. It's not notarized, but it has his signature and fingerprint. It's legally valid. Then I took out my phone and opened my banking app again. The long string of zeros in my balance was impossible to miss. I don't need this money anymore. But what's mine, every cent, must be returned. Mark's expression darkened. He reached to grab my phone, but I twisted away. The flight attendant immediately stepped in. Sir, please return to your seat and do not disturb other passengers. Sophie, don't push your luck. Mark raised his voice. You're immigrating. What use is that apartment to you? Do you really think you'll come back to live there? Just do us a favor and transfer it. When Amy comes back someday, she'll at least have a place to stay. Amy's future home is none of your concern. I put the documents back in my bag. My lawyer has already contacted you. Within 3 days, either repay the money or cooperate with the property transfer. Otherwise, I'll file a lawsuit. And when that happens, you'll not only repay the debt, you'll also cover legal fees and penalties. Jessica tugged at Mark's arm and whispered, Mark, stop arguing with her. We're getting married tomorrow. Don't ruin the mood. Then she glared at me. Just you wait. Sophie, once I marry into Mark's family, you'll regret this. Mark took a deep breath and shot me a vicious look. Fine, you win this round. But don't get cocky. Without me, you won't last in America with a kid. Sooner or later, you'll come crawling back. With that, he pulled Jessica back to their seats. The curtain was drawn. The cabin fell quiet again. Amy turned over in her sleep and murmured, Mommy. I gently patted her back and looked out the window. The flight lasted over 10 hours. Amy drifted in and out of sleep. Mark and Jessica didn't come near us again. As we approached Los Angeles, Amy pressed her face to the window, eyes wide with excitement. Mom, look! So many houses. They look like building blocks. I smiled and stroked her hair. Yes. From now on, this is our new home. After landing, we went through the priority immigration line. The officer checked our documents and waved us through without issue. Outside the airport, the driver arranged by Attorney Thompson was waiting with a sign bearing my name. He was American and spoke a little Chinese. He loaded our luggage and drove us to the temporary residence. The apartment was in a quiet residential building. The elevator opened directly into the unit. When the door swung open, a faint, pleasant scent drifted out. The living room was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the streets of Los Angeles. The furniture was brand new. In the children's room, cartoon stickers Amy loved were already on the walls. A housekeeper was busy in the kitchen. When she saw us, she immediately came forward. Ms. Sophie, little Amy. Hello, my name is Sisterly. I'll be taking care of your daily needs from now on. I nodded. Thank you, Sisterly. After settling Amy in the living room with her toys, I stepped out onto the balcony and called Megan. She answered immediately. Sophie, did you arrive? Are you safe? We're here. Moved into the apartment. Everything's fine. I looked at the city stretching out in the distance. Keep an eye on Mark and Jessica's wedding tomorrow. Don't worry. I've already spoken to a friend at the Hilton. I'll give you a live update. Megan sounded furious. That Jessica is outrageous. She's flaunting the wedding on social media, calling you a discarded housewife. I'm so mad for you. Don't bother with her, I said calmly. By the way, check Mark's company's recent financial situation, and look into any financial transactions between him and Jessica. Let me know if you find anything. Got it. I'll start now. Megan paused. Sophie, do you have a plan? If you need anything, just say the word. It's nothing. I just don't want them getting too comfortable. After hanging up, I went back inside. Amy was building a little house out of blocks. When she saw me, she held one up proudly. Mommy, look, this is our new home. I sat beside her and helped her finish building it. Soon she grew sleepy. Sisterly bathed her and tucked her into bed. I sat on the living room sofa and opened my laptop. Attorney Thompson had already sent the domestic asset recovery authorization documents. I reviewed them carefully, signed electronically, and sent them back. Just as I closed the laptop, my phone buzzed. A line message from Megan with a live stream link and a series of voice notes. Sophie, you have to see this, Megan said angrily. Mark and Jessica's wedding is practically an exact copy of yours. Even the flowers, white roses with baby's breath, exactly the same. And the guest list. They invited his parents and even your former colleagues, everyone except your relatives. Jessica's dress is almost the same style as yours back then. It's an obvious provocation. I tapped the live stream link. The ballroom at the Hilton looked painfully familiar. White roses wrapped around Roman columns. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Even the sign-in desk design was identical to my wedding. Mark, dressed in a white suit, stood at the entrance greeting guests with Jessica. She wore a mermaid-style gown, smiling smugly and waving constantly at the camera. The livestream chat was already filled with comments. Some viewers recognized the setup and wrote, "Isn't this the same wedding Mark had with Sophie years ago? The mistress copying the original wife's wedding? Disgusting." But those comments were quickly buried under floods of congratulations and perfect couple. It was obvious someone was moderating and suppressing negative remarks. I casually took several screenshots and sent them to my lawyer back home, along with a message: "Please verify all wedding vendors and check whether Mark used company funds to pay for the reception. Also investigate Jessica's position and salary at his company, specifically whether there have been improper reimbursements or embezzlement." The lawyer replied almost instantly, "Received. MS. Sophie. I'll assign a team to investigate immediately. I've already obtained the vendor list and am cross-checking the payment accounts." Just then, Megan sent another live voice message. "Sophie, I just ran into your ex-mother-in-law. She's wearing this bright red dress, bragging to everyone that Jessica is pregnant. Says the Mark family is finally getting a grandson. She even said you deserved the divorce because you couldn't give them a son." My fingers paused over the screen. I wasn't angry, just amused. Back when I was pregnant with Amy, my ex-mother-in-law had been unhappy the entire time. Once she found out it was a girl, she kept pressuring me to try again. My health wasn't good, my doctor advised against another pregnancy, but she constantly gave me attitude. Mark always pretended not to see it. Now that Jessica claimed she was pregnant, of course she was thrilled. She hadn't even verified whether it was true before announcing it everywhere. "Keep an eye on whether Jessica shows any morning sickness or avoids certain foods." I texted Megan back. "Also check if any of Mark's company's shareholders are there, especially David and Tom." Megan replied quickly, "On it. David and Tom are both here. They're drinking with Mark, look like they're on good terms. Jessica just told someone she's 3 months pregnant and even rubbed her belly on purpose. But I just saw her drink half a glass of red wine. What kind of pregnant woman drinks alcohol?" That told me enough. At 3 months, a pregnancy is at its most delicate stage. If Jessica dared to drink wine, she was either not pregnant at all, or she simply didn't care. I opened another chat window and contacted a former colleague who used to work in finance at Mark's company. She had been fired after reporting Jessica's misconduct and still resented Mark. "Hey, sis. What's up?" She replied almost immediately. I wanted to ask, when Jessica was at the company, did she handle any financial transactions or reimbursements? "Yes," she answered. After she became Mark's secretary, she took over part of the reimbursement process and vendor coordination. I found fake invoices several times. There were also transfers to unfamiliar accounts with no documentation. I reported it to Mark, but he said I was meddling and eventually fired me. There was obvious bitterness in her tone. I still have some screenshots from the bookkeeping back then. "Want me to send them?" "Absolutely," I replied. "Please send everything you have. And if you know of any vendors Jessica had private dealings with, tell me." Soon, a flood of screenshots arrived: fake catering invoices, luxury purchase receipts, and several large transfers. The receiving accounts were all private individuals, labeled as office expenses, but the amounts were far beyond reasonable. I organized the screenshots and forwarded them to my lawyer. "Can this serve as evidence of occupational embezzlement?" I added. "Also, please investigate the holders of these private accounts and whether they're connected to Jessica." The lawyer responded quickly, "These can serve as preliminary evidence. We've already started investigating the account holders, results expected tomorrow. Additionally, we've confirmed that Mark used company funds to pay for the entire wedding, dress, venue, alcohol, totaling 2.8 million yuan. This constitutes suspected misappropriation of company assets and damages shareholder interests." I closed the chat and returned to the live stream. Most of the guests had arrived. The MC was warming up the crowd, inviting Mark and Jessica to share their love story. Mark held Jessica's hand and spoke into the microphone. "Jessica and I fell in love at first sight. She's kind, independent, capable. She stayed by my side during my lowest point. She's the light of my life. The comment section started buzzing again. Someone wrote, "Didn't Mark show off his marriage with Sophie just last year? How did it suddenly become love at first sight?" But the comment was quickly buried under waves of congratulations. And perfect couple. Megan messaged angrily, "Lowest point? When his startup failed. It was your parents who gave him $2 million to keep it afloat. Now he's rewriting history." I didn't reply. I just watched. Then my lawyer sent another message. Attached with a document. MS. Sophie. Here are Jessica's bank statements. We've identified 3 personal accounts under her name. Over the past year, she received 1.7 million yuan transferred from Mark's company. Of that, 500,000 was transferred to her parents, 300,000 spent on luxury goods, and 800,000 transferred to a mail account. We are verifying the identity of that individual. Additionally, Mark's company is experiencing cash flow problems. For the past 3 months, they've delayed payments to suppliers. The wedding expenses were covered by third-party borrowing. The corner of my mouth lifted slightly. Mark probably believed marrying Jessica and the so-called pregnancy would stabilize shareholders and suppliers. He had no idea Jessica had already been quietly siphoning money from the company. I forwarded the bank statements to Megan with one line, "Send these anonymously to David and Tom." No explanation needed. They'll understand. Megan responded instantly, "Got it. I'll make sure they see everything clearly." On the live stream, the MC announced the start of the ceremony. Music swelled. Jessica walked slowly toward Mark, holding her father's arm. Mark reached out and took her hand. They smiled at each other, looking perfectly in love. But I knew that fragile illusion would soon shatter. I closed the live stream and stepped onto the balcony. Dawn had arrived in Los Angeles. Sunlight filtered through a thin layer of mist, illuminating the streets and the small flowers along the sidewalk. Amy was still asleep, a sweet smile on her face. I picked up my phone and sent one final message to my lawyer. "Tomorrow morning, initiate legal proceedings against Mark for misappropriation of company assets and against Jessica for occupational embezzlement. Also contact all suppliers with unpaid invoices and inform them they can jointly sue Mark. I will provide necessary evidence." The lawyer replied, "Understood. MS. Sophie. Everything will proceed as planned." Back on the live stream, the ceremony had ended and the toasting round had begun. Mark and Jessica, hand in hand, raised their glasses and went table by table. My former mother-in-law followed behind them, beaming, telling everyone, "We're finally going to have a grandson." Basking in congratulations, Megan sent another live update online. "Sophie, they're at Jessica's relatives' table now. Her niece Lily is there, the one I mentioned before. Works in bank risk control. She looks uncomfortable, like she's not close to Jessica." I focused on the screen. Jessica walked up to a table of relatives and smiled sweetly. "Thank you all for coming to our wedding. We'll count on your support in the future." She raised her glass toward Lily, but Lily didn't lift hers. She kept her head down, typing quickly on her phone. Mark's smile stiffened slightly. He tried to smooth things over. "Is Lily shy? Come on, let your uncle toast you." At that moment, Lily suddenly stood up, holding her phone high. Her voice rang out clearly, "Auntie, before you start toasting, why don't you explain to everyone what these chat records in your phone mean?" Lily turned her phone screen toward the surrounding guests and deliberately turned up the brightness. Even through the live stream, I could see clearly it was a string of intimate messages between Jessica and an unfamiliar man. The tone was affectionate, even flirtatious. One line stood out, "Once I marry Mark and get his company shares, I'll run away with you." More shocking were the screenshots embedded in the chat, multiple transfer records. The notes said project funds and event expenses. But the receiving account was Jessica's personal account. Most of the transfers were made right before or after key supplier payment dates for Mark's company. "And this," Lily said, swiping again and pulling up another file. "These are the luxury reimbursements you submitted through the company account. Designer bags, jewelry, and even a watch you bought for this man. Total, over 800,000 yuan. That's all company money, isn't it? You're using my uncle's money to keep a boy toy, while lying to him about being pregnant. Auntie, doesn't your conscience hurt at all?" The entire ballroom fell silent. All eyes were on Jessica. Her face went deathly pale. She lunged for the phone. "Lily, Are you insane? These are fake. You're framing me. If they're fake, a bank audit will prove it. Lily stepped back coolly. I work in risk control at a bank. Tracing transactions is what I do. The records of you diverting company funds and your financial exchanges with that man form a complete evidence chain. I've already sent everything to the Tax Bureau and the Economic Crimes Division. Mark stood frozen. He stared at Lily's phone, lips trembling, unable to form a single word. He probably never imagined that the woman he had just married, his new bride, had not only cheated on him, but had also been siphoning money from his company behind his back. The live stream exploded. The previous comment suppression collapsed instantly. Comments poured in faster than they could be read. Oh my god. The mistress cheated and embezzled company funds? This is wild. Mark got cheated on and robbed at the same time. Lily is savage. Exposing her own aunt like this, respect. People began screenshotting the chat records and reposting them across social media platforms. Megan's voice message came through, barely containing her excitement. Sophie. This is incredible. Lily just flipped the table. Mark is standing there like a wooden statue. His face is green. And your ex-mother-in-law? Her face is darker than a burnt pot. She's about to explode. On screen, chaos unfolded. Jessica was still trying to defend herself, claiming Lily was jealous and spreading rumors. But guests were already whispering. Some were pulling out their phones to search for information. Others were quietly leaving. No one looked convinced anymore. Finally, Mark snapped. He grabbed Jessica's wrist, hard enough that she cried out. Tell me, is this true? You're not pregnant, are you? Where did the company's money go? Mark, listen to me. It's not what you think, Jessica sobbed, tears and mascara running down her face. Her flawless makeup was ruined. The smug confidence she had worn earlier was gone. Lily stood to the side and said coldly, Uncle, you'd better call the police yourself. The amount she diverted is substantial. It qualifies as occupational embezzlement. And in those chat records, she mentioned leaking core project data from your company to a competitor. You might want to check your latest project progress. That sentence hit like a thunderclap. Mark staggered, nearly losing his balance. He stared at Jessica in disbelief and fury, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Guests erupted into murmurs. Phones were raised everywhere. Reporters pushed forward, cameras flashing, questions firing one after another. Mr. Mark, did Ms. Jessica embezzle company funds? Is the pregnancy fake? Mr. Mark, do you have anything to say about this marriage? Mark was surrounded, his face ashen, unable to speak. My former mother-in-law stormed forward and pointed at Jessica's nose. You liar! You tricked us into marriage and stole our money. I'll kill you, you shameless fox. She raised her hand, slap. The sharp crack echoed through the ballroom. Jessica's head snapped to the side. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth, clutching her cheek. She stared in disbelief. Mom, how could you hit me? Who's your mom? My ex-mother-in-law trembled with rage. We don't have a fraud like you in this family. Return every cent you stole or I won't let this go. The scene dissolved into complete chaos. Some guests watched in stunned fascination. Others rushed for the exits. Lily calmly put away her phone, cast one cold glance at the disgraced couple, and walked out of the ballroom. The live stream jolted violently and then cut to black. Only scrolling comments remained. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the sofa. Sisterly brought me a glass of warm water. Ms. Sophie, you don't look too well. Are you tired? I'm fine. I took a sip. I just didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. After the stream ended, Megan's voice messages flooded in. The background was filled with shouting. Sophie, it's total chaos. Your ex-mother-in-law slapped Jessica and then grabbed her hair, smashing her against the wall. Jessica's parents rushed in to protect her. Now both families are fighting. Tables are overturned. White roses all over the floor. Compared to the warmth of your wedding years ago, this is a complete disaster. I opened the video Megan sent. The once elegant ballroom was a wreck. My ex-mother-in-law had been shoved by Jessica's father. Her hair was disheveled as she screamed. Your whole family is full of liars. Jessica's mother was clinging to her daughter, crying at Mark. You owe our daughter an explanation. Mark stood in the middle, pale as paper, hands buried in his hair, looking utterly shattered. Guests scattered. Some filmed. Others called someone frantically. Soon, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. In the video, police officers entered the ballroom and quickly separated the two sides. Megan sent another voice message. The police are here. They've separated everyone and are taking statements. The reporters never left, they're filming everything. Mark and Jessica's faces are everywhere. This is definitely going to trend tomorrow. I opened social media back home. As expected, hashtags were already exploding. Mark's wedding disaster, mistress embezzles. Company funds, luxury wedding turns into brawl, each tagged with the red hot indicator. Comments were flying in. Some posted photos from the scene. Others dug up Jessica's background. Many compared her wedding setup to mine from years ago. Mocking, the imitator has become the punchline. Just then, my lawyer messaged, Ms. Sophie, after verification. During her tenure as administrative director at Mark's company, Jessica abused her position to divert 196 million yuan through fake contracts and fraudulent reimbursements. Of that, 800,000 was transferred to her romantic partner. The remainder was spent on personal luxury consumption. In addition, my lawyer wrote, Mark's company's cash flow had already collapsed. The 2.8 million yuan for this wedding was borrowed from a microloan company, and it hasn't been repaid. He added, the Hilton just contacted me. Mark only paid a 500,000 yuan deposit. He's refusing to settle the remaining 2.3 million balance for the banquet. The hotel has detained the wedding dress, jewelry, and other items, and is demanding additional compensation for property damage. Understood, I replied. No sooner had I put down my phone than the trending topics updated again. Someone online had exposed that Jessica's so-called romantic partner was actually a project manager at one of Mark's competitor companies. The two had been colluding for a long time. Jessica hadn't just diverted company funds, she had also leaked Mark's core project data. The comment section exploded. Double betrayal. Mark lost his wife and his fortune. Feel bad for Mark for 3 seconds, actually. Never mind. Serves him right. Megan sent another video. In it, the police were taking Jessica's statement. She sat with her head lowered, hair disheveled, tear stains and a red handprint still visible on her face. The smugness from earlier was completely gone. My former mother-in-law sat nearby, crying to the officers. We were deceived by this woman. She tricked us into marriage, embezzled company funds, and leaked business secrets. Mark was being questioned by another officer. He remained silent the entire time, occasionally nodding, his eyes hollow. Sophie, your ex-father-in-law just arrived. Megan's voice carried unmistakable schadenfreude. First thing he did was slap Mark and call him an idiot. Then he told the police he wants to pursue full legal responsibility against Jessica and annul the marriage. I turned off the video and walked to the doorway of the children's room. Amy was sleeping peacefully. Inside, I felt nothing but calm. The wedding Mark and Jessica had schemed so carefully had turned into a public farce. Not only humiliation, but lawsuits and debt. This was only the beginning. Another message from my lawyer came through. Ms. Sophie, the project whose data Jessica leaked has already cost Mark's company 3 major clients. Direct economic losses exceed 5 million yuan. Suppliers are now aware of the situation. 5 have contacted me, saying they intend to file a joint lawsuit to recover unpaid debts. Good, I replied. Fully cooperate with the suppliers. Provide any evidence needed, and continue pursuing the occupational embezzlement charges against Jessica. Make sure she faces legal consequences. The Los Angeles noon sun was bright and gentle. I took Amy downstairs to the park. My phone buzzed repeatedly in my pocket. Ms. Sophie, Mark's company's capital chain has completely broken. The first message read bluntly. After Jessica's embezzlement was exposed, the bank froze the company accounts. Previous loans have matured. Suppliers are now blocking the company entrance demanding payment. Amy was crouched on the ground, watching ants carry crumbs. Her little finger poked curiously at the dirt. I quickly typed back, let the suppliers proceed according to legal process. I'll continue providing evidence. Another message arrived almost immediately. Additionally, the Hilton has officially sued Mark for the remaining 2.3 million banquet fee and 500,000 yuan in property damage. The court has accepted the case. Several key employees at Mark's company have already resigned and taken important clients with them. Amy stood up and tugged at my sleeve. Mommy, can we get ice cream? I smiled and nodded, walking her toward a nearby dessert shop. As soon as we stepped inside, my phone rang again. An unfamiliar domestic number. I hesitated, then answered. Sophie, it's me. Mark's voice sounded exhausted, fragile, even pleading. I know I was wrong. For Amy's sake, can you help me just this once? The company can't survive. Suppliers are demanding payment. The bank is pressing for repayment. I have nowhere left to turn. I found a seat by the window and let Amy choose her ice cream. Mark, we're divorced. Your problems have nothing to do with me. How can you say that? His voice suddenly rose. You have 320 million. Why won't you help me? We were married once. Are you really going to watch me go bankrupt? If you help me through this, I'll make it up to you and Amy. We can remarry, okay? Remarry? I let out a small laugh. Did you think about today when you forced me to divorce with Jessica by your side? When you used company money to throw her a wedding? When you diverted my premarital assets? Now that you're desperate, you remember me? Mark, don't you think you're being selfish? I had no choice. He sounded on the verge of tears. That company is my life's work. I can't lose it. Sophie, I'm begging you. Just lend me some money. I'll pay you back double once I recover. And that premarital apartment, I'll return it to you immediately. Just help me. My apartment was always mine. You don't get to return it. My tone was icy. As for lending you money, impossible. The 23 million you owe me, and the misuse of my premarital property, will be recovered through legal channels. If you continue harassing me, my lawyer will file suit immediately. I hung up and blocked the number. Amy walked over with her ice cream and held up a spoon to my lips. Mommy, try some. I tasted it, sweet and cold. The heaviness in my chest eased. Before we even finished, another message from my lawyer came in. MS. Sophie, Mark couldn't reach you and called me instead. He said he's willing to return your premarital property and repay the 23 million debt, as long as you help him cover part of his liabilities. I refused and informed him he has 3 days to complete the property transfer, or we will initiate compulsory enforcement. Well done, I replied. Also investigate his current assets. Check for any signs of asset concealment. Already underway. The lawyer responded. We found that one of his luxury cars has been mortgaged to a microloan company. Another apartment is listed for sale, but given his public scandal, no buyers are interested. His personal accounts are frozen. At this point, he's essentially penniless. I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked home with Amy. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Mark had chosen this path himself. He betrayed his marriage, trusted Jessica blindly, misused company funds. Now every consequence was his to bear. Back at the apartment, Sisterly had prepared lunch. I ate with Amy and then tucked her in for a nap. Lying on the bed, I opened my laptop and browsed domestic news. Reports about Mark's company's collapse were everywhere. Former startup star falls from grace. Mark's company declares bankruptcy after cash flow crisis. Mistress embezzles funds. Leaks confidential data. Wedding turns into bankruptcy. Countdown. The irony was almost poetic. The comment sections were even more ruthless. Good and evil eventually receive their due. What goes around comes around. Some even dug up the story of how my parents had funded Mark's early startup days, mocking him as ungrateful and deserving of his fate. When Amy woke up, the late afternoon sun was slanting into the living room. We sat together building Lego sets, my phone resting nearby. Suddenly, the screen lit up. A long message from my lawyer, attached with a detailed list of Mark's debts. MS. Sophie, Mark's debt situation is worse than we anticipated. My lawyer wrote, in addition to the wedding expenses, supplier payments, and bank loans, he borrowed 5 million yuan from private lenders at a monthly interest rate of 3%. The loan is overdue. The lenders have already come to his door twice. His apartment has been listed for a week with no buyers. And the luxury car he mortgaged isn't nearly enough to cover the high-interest debt. He's now in hiding. He can't even pay his employees' salaries. I scrolled through the dense list of liabilities. The total exceeded 8 million yuan. Just then, Megan sent me a line message, an audio recording, full of shouting in the background. Sophie, I got this from one of Mark's employees. After Mark went into hiding, his parents and Jessica's parents started fighting downstairs at the company building. They're blaming each other's kids, and it got physical. I pressed play. My former mother-in-law's voice was shrill and furious. Your daughter seduced my son and stole his money. She's ruined our entire family. Jessica's mother fired back just as fiercely. Your son is incompetent. If his company failed, how is that my daughter's fault? When he was begging her to marry him, why didn't you say that? The argument spiraled into curses and chaos. I forwarded the recording to my lawyer with a note: this can serve as supplementary evidence that Mark and Jessica's marriage has completely broken down, and that Jessica bears fault. Also remind Mark that he must complete the property transfer within 3 days, or we will proceed with compulsory enforcement. Received. MS. Sophie. My lawyer replied, I've sent another legal notice. However, his whereabouts are currently uncertain. I've requested court assistance in locating him. Not long after, a text message from an unfamiliar number popped up. It was Mark. Sophie. I know I wronged you, but Amy is innocent. You can't abandon us as father and daughter. I'm truly desperate. The loan sharks say if I don't pay, they'll break one of my arms. Please, just lend me $5 million. Once I recover, I'll pay you back double. I'll even take Amy to live with me and take good care of her. I stared at the message. When he abandoned us, he never once thought about Amy being innocent. Now that he had nowhere to turn, he was using her to beg for sympathy. I deleted the message and blocked the number. No hesitation. That evening, after Amy fell asleep, I sat on the sofa reviewing documents. Another message came from my lawyer. MS. Sophie. Mark has finally responded. He agrees to complete the property transfer within 3 days, but requests that you withdraw the lawsuit regarding the misappropriation of your premarital assets and forgive the 123 million yuan debt. Impossible. I replied immediately. The property transfer is his legal obligation. The debt must also be repaid. These are separate matters. If he refuses, we'll proceed with compulsory enforcement. At that point, he'll not only repay the debt but also bear enforcement costs. It could affect his credit rating. He won't be able to take loans, flights, or high-speed trains. My lawyer relayed my message. Half an hour later, he responded, Mark agrees. He will complete the property transfer at 10 a.m. tomorrow. He will repay the 123 million, but currently only has 800,000. He's asking for a 1-month extension on the remaining 430,000. No. I typed firmly. Full payment up front, or no transfer. If he lacks funds, he can sell his watches, jewelry, or ask his parents. That's not my concern. After another round of negotiation, my lawyer replied, Mark agrees. He will gather the full 123 million and appear tomorrow. I set my phone down and leaned back against the sofa. Outside, Los Angeles night deepened. Streetlights flickered on, outlining the city's silhouette. The transfer tomorrow was only the beginning. Mark's troubles were far from over: loan sharks, supplier lawsuits, Jessica's criminal case. All I needed to do was reclaim what was mine, and then move forward with Amy. The next morning, I joined the property transfer process via video call. On the screen, Mark looked unrecognizable. He wore a cheap tracksuit. His hair was messy. His eyes were sunken and exhausted. Gone was the confident man I once knew. He transferred 123 million yuan into my account. Then he signed the transfer documents. He didn't say a word. His face was pale as paper. After the procedure was completed, my lawyer messaged me, MS. Sophie, the property transfer is finalized. I'm holding the updated deed and will courier it to you. After leaving the property bureau, Mark was intercepted by the loan sharks outside. An argument broke out. Police have been called. That afternoon, Megan's messages exploded onto my phone, including a video from outside the property bureau. Several men in black surrounded Mark. One grabbed his collar, another slapped his face. Mark crouched down, covering his head, utterly humiliated. Police arrived quickly and took both parties in for questioning. Sophie, it's on local news already, Megan said gleefully. Headline reads, Bankrupt boss cornered by loan sharks. He's officially infamous now. And Jessica's parents and your ex-in-laws started fighting again at the police station. They're arguing about canceling the marriage and demanding compensation from each other. Even the officers can't calm them down. I opened the news link. There it was, Mark surrounded by creditors, face visibly swollen. The comment section was merciless. Poetic justice. You reap what you sow. Adultery comes at a price. Soon after, my lawyer sent another update. Ms. Sophie. Jessica has been formally arrested on suspicion of occupational embezzlement. The 1.96 million yuan diversion is well documented, along with evidence of leaking trade secrets. Mark's company's losses exceed 5 million. Mark has also filed a civil suit against Jessica for economic damages. In addition, he continued, Mark's former business partners, David and Tom, have officially terminated cooperation and filed a breach of contract lawsuit seeking 3 million yuan in damages. Mark is now facing 7 or 8 legal cases. Legal fees alone will be substantial. Understood, I replied. Just then, Amy ran over holding a drawing. Mommy, look! I drew our new home. On the paper were blue skies, white clouds, and a colorful little house. She and I stood at the door. Beside us was a small dog. I stroked her hair. It's beautiful. We'll live here for a long time. That afternoon, Sisterly informed me that the immigration office had approved our mother-daughter residency application. Our official green cards would arrive within a week. A weight lifted from my chest. We could finally live here in peace. Megan sent another message. Sophie, I heard Jessica's family repaid about 1 million of the 1.96 million she diverted, trying to reduce her sentence, but they can't cover the remaining 960,000. Mark's parents refused to pay, saying she's a fraud and not their responsibility. Jessica's emotionally unstable in detention. She even attempted self-harm but was stopped. And Mark? Megan continued. After leaving the police station, he went back to his parents' house. But the loan sharks tracked him down, smashed the doors and windows. His parents are furious and told him to move out. He's completely alone now. No one is willing to help him. I read the messages quietly. No triumph. No anger. Just clarity. Mark had chosen ambition over loyalty, greed over integrity. Now he was living with the consequences. As for me, I closed my phone, walked into Amy's room, and tucked her blanket in more carefully. Outside the window, the California sunset painted the sky in warm gold. A new life had already begun. I opened my laptop and browsed the latest news. Mark's company had officially entered bankruptcy liquidation. All assets were frozen, pending auction to repay creditors. Jessica's criminal case was moving forward as well. Based on the severity of her offenses, a prison sentence was highly likely. As for Mark, he wasn't just drowning in debt and lawsuits, he was isolated, disgraced, and finished in the business world. The day my residency card arrived, I was walking with Amy through the Los Angeles Botanical Garden. My phone vibrated just as Amy stood on tiptoe to admire a row of blooming orchids in the greenhouse. It was my lawyer, Ms. Sophie. Mark has filed a lawsuit against you. I paused mid-step and guided Amy to sit on a nearby bench before asking calmly, on what grounds? He claims you deliberately concealed your grandfather's inheritance. He argues that the 320 million constitutes potential marital property during the marriage and is demanding 160 million as his share. My lawyer sounded faintly exasperated. He submitted your divorce agreement as evidence, alleging you failed to truthfully disclose assets and committed fraud. He's requesting the court revoke the property division portion of the agreement. Amy tugged my sleeve and pointed at a butterfly fluttering past. Mommy, look. I stroked her hair and asked into the phone. Are the documents ready? All prepared. My lawyer replied immediately. Your grandfather's will clearly states the inheritance belongs solely to you, independent of any spouse. The will was notarized. Additionally, the inheritance funds were formally transferred after your divorce was finalized. That alone excludes it from marital property. At the time of divorce, the estate had not yet completed probate, so there was nothing to conceal. The evidentiary chain is airtight. His claim will almost certainly be dismissed. I exhaled slowly, then proceed according to plan. Also remind the court of his litigation motive. He's buried in debt and clearly attempting to exploit this lawsuit for improper gain. After hanging up, I finished watching the butterflies with Amy before heading home. As soon as I stepped into the apartment, Megan's line messages popped up. Sophie, I heard about the lawsuit. Is he insane? That 320 million is your grandfather's inheritance. What does it have to do with him? I heard he's literally sleeping in a friend's garage now, and he still has the nerve to sue you? It's fine, I replied. The evidence is solid. He won't win. Maybe, Megan sighed in a voice note. But lawsuits are still exhausting. Oh, and Jessica's case had its first hearing. She pleaded guilty, but claimed Mark pressured her and that he knew about the embezzlement and turned a blind eye. Mark's lawyer immediately denied it and submitted counter-evidence. They're tearing each other apart in court. It's ugly. I read the message without responding. Mark and Jessica were simply cornered animals now, desperate, turning on each other to lessen their own punishment. But evidence doesn't lie. Over the next few days, my lawyer sent trial preparation documents one after another. I reviewed and confirmed everything, submitting statements via video conference. During that time, Mark tried contacting me again through unknown numbers. One message read, "If you give me $50 million, I'll withdraw the lawsuit immediately. I'll even give up visitation rights to Amy." I blocked the number without a second thought. My lawyer responded on my behalf with 3 words, "See you in court." A week later, he messaged again, "MS. Sophie, the hearing is scheduled for next Monday at 9 a.m. Mark is attempting to supplement evidence, but it's largely irrelevant. Records of gifts he bought you during the marriage, trips he paid for, arguing he contributed to the family and deserves part of the inheritance. Legally, these arguments hold little weight." "Thank you," I replied. "Proceed as planned." Amy sat beside me, drawing with crayons and humming an English nursery rhyme she'd learned in preschool. Watching her carefree smile, my heart softened. Mark's lawsuit was nothing more than his final struggle. He would not succeed. All I wanted now was a quiet life, raising Amy, watching her grow. As for the mess he created, the law would deliver the final judgment. The day before trial, my lawyer sent a final evidence summary. MS. Sophie, all documentation has been submitted, notarized will, inheritance transfer records, divorce agreement, financial disclosure statements, as well as evidence of Mark's marital infidelity and diversion of joint marital funds. I will defend your rights fully tomorrow. Thank you, I responded. On the day of the hearing, I joined the courtroom via video link. When the screen lit up, I barely recognized Mark. He wore a faded jacket. His hair was unkempt. Dark circles ringed his bloodshot eyes. He looked nothing like the confident entrepreneur he once was. His attorney sat beside him, shuffling through a thick stack of papers. The judge struck the gavel. Mark's attorney spoke first, presenting the divorce agreement and financial disclosures, alleging I had intentionally concealed my grandfather's inheritance and committed fraud. He argued that since my grandfather drafted the will during our marriage, the inheritance constituted potential marital property and that Mark was entitled to $160 million. My client, Mr. Mark, worked diligently during the marriage, bore household expenses, and made significant contributions to the family. The attorney argued, although the will names Sophie as beneficiary, it does not explicitly exclude spousal rights. Therefore, the inheritance should be considered marital property. My attorney stood immediately. "Your Honor, this notarized will explicitly states that all assets are to be inherited solely by MS. Sophie, independent of any other party. It carries full legal effect. Furthermore, the inheritance was formally transferred after the divorce was finalized. Under law, it does not constitute marital property." He then submitted evidence of Mark's extramarital affair, photos with Jessica, chat records, and bank statements showing the diversion of my premarital assets and salary savings. During the marriage, Mr. Mark maintained a long-term improper relationship with a third party and transferred Ms. Sophie's premarital property under the pretext of company cash flow. His current lawsuit is malicious litigation motivated by financial desperation. Mark suddenly stood up, agitated. "This isn't malicious. Sophie knew about the inheritance and hid it from me. She waited until after the divorce to claim it so she could keep it all. We were married. How can she be so heartless?" The judge instructed him to sit and provide evidence. Flushed red, Mark fumbled through his phone and produced only screenshots of gifts and travel expenses from years ago. "I bought her bags, jewelry, took her on trips. I gave so much to this family. She can't treat me like this." My lawyer responded calmly, "These are ordinary gifts between spouses. They have no bearing on personal inheritance. Under civil law, property specified in a will as belonging solely to one spouse is that spouse's individual property. Mr. Mark has no legal basis to claim division." The courtroom fell silent. The law was clear, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely free. Next, The judge called witnesses, including Attorney Thompson, the executor of my grandfather's will, and Mark's former company accountant. Attorney Thompson testified clearly that the will reflected my grandfather's true intentions and explicitly designated the inheritance as my personal property. The former accountant took the stand and confirmed that during our marriage, Mark had diverted company funds to pay for Jessica's luxury purchases. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Both sides debated intensely over whether the inheritance qualified as marital property and whether I had concealed assets. Mark's attorney repeatedly attempted to blur legal definitions, but each argument was countered by my attorney with precise statutes and documented evidence. Mark sat at the defendant's table. At first, he was agitated. Gradually, he fell silent. His eyes dimmed with every passing minute. During closing statements, my attorney concluded, "The facts are clear and the evidence is conclusive. Ms. Sophie's inheritance was explicitly designated by her grandfather as her sole personal property. It has no legal connection to Mr. Mark. During the marriage, Mr. Mark engaged in infidelity and transferred marital assets. Now, burdened by debt, he seeks to divide property that is legally not his. His claims lack both legal and factual basis. We respectfully request dismissal." He added, "Although Mr. Mark has returned the premarital property he wrongfully occupied, Ms. Sophie reserves the right to pursue further legal remedies regarding the diversion of marital assets." Mark kept his head down. He said nothing. The judge adjourned the session and announced that a verdict would be issued at a later date. Once the video link ended, my lawyer messaged immediately, "Ms. Sophie, the hearing went very well. The evidentiary chain is solid. The judge clearly leaned in our favor. The likelihood of dismissal is extremely high." I let out a long breath and looked at Amy, who was building blocks beside me. She glanced up and smiled. "Mommy, who are you talking to?" I walked over and picked her up. "Just some uncles and aunties back home helping Mommy with paperwork. It's all done now." That afternoon, Megan sent another message. "Sophie, I heard about the hearing. Mark is doomed." After court, reporters surrounded him outside asking why he sued his ex-wife for inheritance money. He couldn't answer a single question. Police had to escort him away. I opened the video she sent. Mark stood in the middle of a crowd of reporters, head lowered, hands covering his face, looking utterly defeated. The online comments were merciless, shameless. "Sore loser, driven crazy by money." 3 days after the hearing, my lawyer sent the civil judgment, scanned and stamped. I sat on the sofa with Amy and scrolled through the ruling carefully. Every line was clear. The court held, my grandfather's will was valid and legally binding. The $320 million inheritance was my exclusive personal property. Mark's request for division was entirely dismissed. He was ordered to bear all litigation costs, 86,000 yuan. The judgment also confirmed that the transfer of the premarital property had been completed and required no further enforcement. It specifically noted that Mark's contributions to the family during the marriage were insufficient to alter the legal classification of the inheritance. His malicious litigation claim was unsupported. I screenshot the judgment and sent it to Megan. She immediately replied with a string of exclamation marks and an excited voice message, "Sophie, justice wins." Mark must be stunned. I heard he squatted outside the courthouse for a long time after receiving the judgment, like he'd lost his soul. She added, "And Jessica's verdict is out. For occupational embezzlement and leaking trade secrets, combined sentencing, she received 5 years in prison. Her family plans to appeal, but with the evidence this strong, the sentence will probably stand." I put my phone down. Amy leaned against me, pressing her little head to my arm. "Mommy, can we go feed the pigeons today?" I smiled. Of course. Sisterly had already prepared a picnic basket, Amy's favorite small bread rolls and fruit inside. The Los Angeles park was glowing in afternoon sunlight. Pigeons wandered lazily across the grass. Amy scattered breadcrumbs, laughing brightly. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another message from my lawyer, Ms. Sophie. Mark's company's bankruptcy liquidation is complete. Even after auctioning all assets, the proceeds were insufficient to cover the debts. He has been listed as a judgment defaulter and placed under high consumption restrictions. He cannot fly, take high-speed rail, stay in luxury hotels, or purchase real estate. His unpaid wages to employees and supplier debts are being repaid in installments. Realistically, he will carry debt for the rest of his life. Understood, I replied. That was enough. Mark's ending was of his own making. The moment he betrayed our marriage. The moment he trusted Jessica blindly and misused funds. He had chosen this road. As for me, after completing immigration formalities, I bought a house with a garden in the suburbs of Los Angeles. I enrolled Amy in a nearby international school. She adapted quickly, made new friends, and came home every day chattering excitedly about her classes. I picked up part-time translation work, flexible hours, enough income, and plenty of time to be with her. On weekends, we wandered through Los Angeles farmers markets, buying fresh fruit and flowers. Sometimes we drove to small coastal towns to watch the sunset over the ocean or stroll past historic buildings. Sisterly kept the house running smoothly. Our days were peaceful, warm. That evening, after Amy fell asleep, I sat in the garden with a cup of tea. A soft breeze carried the scent of flowers. In the distance, church bells rang gently. My phone lit up with a news notification: judgment defaulter Mark detained for 15 days for refusal to fulfill debt obligations. I glanced at it. I didn't open it. I took another quiet sip of tea. The resentment, the pain, the humiliation, they had faded with time. I no longer hated Mark. I no longer resented Jessica. Their endings were the consequences of their own choices. All I needed to do was treasure the happiness in front of me. Raise Amy well. Let her grow up healthy and joyful. Above me, the American night sky was scattered with brilliant stars. I looked up at them, feeling nothing but peace. What began with divorce had ended with freedom. In a foreign land, my daughter and I had found our own happiness. Perhaps that is life's greatest gift.